How's it going, everybody? Welcome back to Set 6, and today we're going to be talking about a few interviews that have been done. There's been a few more interviews that have popped up, and it's that guy again, Naoki Hamaguchi, director of Final Fantasy VII Rebirth. Now, I am going to be uploading a video talking about my playthrough of the demo of Final Fantasy VII Rebirth, which I got to play at Comic-Con London, and it was amazing. I'm going to be talking about that. I've got some gameplay footage to show. But yeah, we need to talk about these interviews that Hamaguchi's done, because every time he comes out and says something, like, I see little pockets of the Twitter community melting down here and there, because, as per usual, it's quite conflicting stuff. It's not straightforward, you know. They've done quite a good job of not giving us a straight story, let's put it that way. Don't forget, drop a like on the video, subscribe for future content, but we're going to jump straight into this one now. We've got 2 interviews to go through. Got about 10 statements, responses from Hamaguchi that are quite interesting, or a little bit interesting at the very least. So, we're going to start off with an interview from a magazine called Tech Raptor, and this is an interview that was apparently done around the time of New York Comic-Con, but it was only published on the 27th, on the day that I was at London Comic-Con. And the interview opens straight off the bat, asking the big questions about, is the game going to change? So is the status quo going to change? And Hamaguchi responds, will Cloud and the others defy destiny? Will things be played out exactly the same as that of the original title? That is one question we'll be exploring. So the usual stuff that we get from Hamaguchi or any of the development team when we ask this question. They always say that they've got the OG in mind and that, you know, they want to remain true to it and they're going to use it to advise things. But then they say things like, oh, is it going to change? We'll have to explore that. So they're definitely, you know, playing both sides of this one a little bit. I'm confident that things are going to change in a pretty substantial way, especially once we get towards the end of Rebirth, you know, as a setup for Part 3. Things are going to be different. They don't want us going into Part 3 knowing what's coming. So that's my belief. Plus, everything that's already happened so far. And he follows that up with talking about Zack, and he says that Zack will be a key figure, and through him the players will have experienced the workings of the Final Fantasy VII world within Rebirth. And it's interesting wording this. The Final Fantasy VII world within Rebirth. So for me, this is kind of suggesting that we have one world in Rebirth, and through Zack we're going to be exploring it. Now, whether that means that it's the only world that we have in Rebirth, and we have the multiple timelines thing, you know, we've got Cloud and the party in one, and we've got Zack doing his thing in another, and in that context, Zack's going to be the character that drives the narrative forwards in the world of Final Fantasy VII within Rebirth. I'm not too sure. This wording does seem to potentially hint towards one world in Final Fantasy VII Rebirth, but again, as I've said, they've said so many conflicting things recently, you kind of have to take everything with a pinch of salt. They are definitely making the point that Zack is going to be massively important, and Zack's going to kind of almost unravel what's going on with the world. That's kind of what it feels like. It feels like they're setting Zack up to kind of not only be a part of the mystery, but maybe be the solution to the mystery, or the person that finds the solution to the mystery, or something to that effect. Zack's importance cannot be understated, though. They keep on driving it home how important Zack is going to be. And one important thing that I would kind of notice is that in all the trailer and gameplay footage that we've seen so far, we've not seen Zack. The only things that we've seen have been little tiny things, like a little cutscene, him handing Cloud off to Kyrie, that sort of thing. We've not seen gameplay with him, we've not seen him running around in the world, we've not seen him in combat yet, and I kind of think they're holding that back for a big surprise. I think they're going to hit us with that, and it's going to be like, oh my god, look. I kind of feel like that's what they're going for. But yeah, driving it home. Ooh, are there going to be changes? Ooh, Zack's going to be doing stuff. You know, the usual. Then we get another big one that includes Zack again. Hamaguchi goes on to speak about other characters that people love in other parts of the Final Fantasy VII franchise and the compilation, and he says that without providing any major spoilers, besides Zack, who was not in the original Final Fantasy VII but will be making an appearance here, there's going to be other characters from Final Fantasy VII spin-offs that will be appearing in Rebirth as well. Obviously. We knew that was going to be the case, and at this point the interviewer, or the person who's written this article, kind of goes off on the same kind of tangents we've all gone off on, talking about Cisne, talking about Angeor, Genesis, Lazard, some of Deep Ground from Dirge, Kadash from Advent Children, Denzel. There's so many characters that could be pulled in. And the possibilities are endless. Like recently with the speculation about the hooded figure, I was talking about how it could potentially be Vidot, who's a member of the Turks from the Before Crisis times. So many possibilities, but I feel like Genesis is possibly one of the most likely. But we'll see. Time will tell. We're getting close. He then talks about how we see Cloud not acting like himself in the demo footage, and it was the demo that we played, the Nibelheim flashback, and I can completely agree. Cloud isn't acting like himself, he's acting like Zack. And I love the little touch of the Shinra soldier that's constantly in the background. I'll try and put the footage in here now. I've got some footage, so I'll try and put it in here now. But yeah, there's just a constant Shinra grunt just kind of nearby to Cloud. And that's obviously Cloud. Like, come on. So I really like that touch. The way that you keep him in shot a lot of the time. And it kind of reinforces the fact that Cloud would be able to mimic Zack in this way, especially with the help of Genova cells. But even just without that, he saw how Zack acted consistently. So he would be able to kind of pull that off. And it was just a nice little touch. But yeah, I can confirm that the Cloud that we get in the Nibelheim flashback is a bit, ooh. And the whole weird shot thing, you know which one I mean, the Sephiroth and Cloud team attack where it just looks like a hair advert. I feel like that's probably Cloud idealizing the vision of him and Sephiroth fighting against this beast. That's Cloud's ideal vision of how it looked. It's probably not, it's probably the lighting, but like in my head, that's what it is. And Hamaguchi continues to speak a little bit about how, you know, there are changes that improve things, because the reason that we couldn't really tell Cloud was acting like Zack was because of technical limitations. I kind of agree with that, but you know, you can still convey that with the words that he says and everything and how he speaks. The problem was in the OG, it wasn't a technical limitation. We didn't know Zack, and we barely spoke to Zack. There's like 1 or 2 cutscenes, so you don't get a feeling for how Zack sounds. It's only something that they could pull off in a remake or a sequel, let's be completely honest. So I don't feel like it's a technical limitation thing. I mean, it is. Obviously, you can show more when you've got body language and facial expressions and things like that to work with, so obviously there was some degree of technical limitation to it. But I don't think this would be one of them, because when we're watching the flashback, we've never even had any kind of experience with Zack. No experience whatsoever with Zack. So, you know, we don't really know. I suppose that you could tell that Cloud was acting slightly different, but Cloud's been acting sort of Zack-ish up to this point anyway. Like, he's still Cloud, but with a hint of Zack. So if that's just how he acts in the flashback, then we're not really going to see that. So yeah, it's a bit of a weird one, this. I know I waffled about it, but it was for a reason, and it's after we spoke about this and how there were changes due to technical advancements and things like that, he talks about how the storyline has changed. And he says the original storyline is evergreen. It stands the test of time. If we do follow the script of the original title and do things shot by shot exactly the same, that sort of lacks in newness on its own, and so fans of the original title may not be satisfied with that. So we wanted to kind of keep that newness and sense of wonder in thinking, what will happen next? Yet again suggesting, you know, it's going to be similar, but it's going to be different. And the later on in the game that we get these changes have a bigger impact on the overall narrative of things. But yeah, more of the same, usual stuff, more doubling down on things changing, confirmation that we are going to get additional characters from the compilation, but we knew that anyway. But it's good to hear a lot of these things, and it is again suggesting things are going to change, Zack's going to be important. That's what it keeps suggesting to me. And he does have one more little bit at the end there where he talks about, you know, where they wanted to finish the game, and how they wanted to finish the game with the big climax of what happens with Aerith. The game's all about changing fate and destiny, and they're going to finish Rebirth with the end of Disc 2, which is where Aerith's fate is decided. So, yeah. Big suggestions, but again, you can't trust them. You can't trust them, you just can't do it. They say one thing and they mean a completely different one. So, everything with a pinch of salt. But yeah, that's the end of the first interview. That's the main one that we're going to go through. Again, it kind of goes over a lot of things that we've already spoke about. Does confirm 1 or 2 things that we've not necessarily had confirmed yet, like additional characters from the compilation. But in general, it's just doubling down on everything. The second interview we're covering a little bit less out of because like the bulk of it is things that we've just read over. But it's an interview with NMIA Gaming, and they spoke with Hamaguchi at the Thailand Game Show, which was not long ago, and they also got to check out the demo, got to ask some questions, so we're going to jump straight into them. And like the first one is one of the ones that kind of I saw circulating around Twitter, and everyone was like, oh my god. And the question was, what inspired you the most when revisiting FF7 for this project? And Hamaguchi talks about the challenges of this project, but at one point he says that he got inspiration and guidance for what to change for the remake was when he watched a Disney animation and its corresponding live-action adaptation. And that's almost certainly Beauty and the Beast, I'm pretty confident it is. And a lot of people took this as, oh my god, he's using Disney for a reference. Oh. And kind of got like that. It's not that. It's talking about how you structure remakes and how they had to leave certain things on the cutting room floor because, you know, they wouldn't translate from that original format as a 2D animated movie into the world of like a full live action movie. So that was what he was talking about. He was talking about that kind of process. He's not saying that he's took direct inspiration from it, and we're going to see Cloud dancing around with Sephiroth, and Sephiroth's got a rose in a glass jar. So none of that's going to happen. None of that's going to happen. Calm yourself. Now, they do ask Hamaguchi about like the playable Nibelheim flashback section and Sephiroth and how he's behaving, and it is very much a Sephiroth that's more in line with his Crisis Core interpretation, you know, because it's before he's broken, basically. But later on in the response to this question, Hamaguchi talks again about changes, and he talks about how introducing new elements to the game, giving players fresh and unexpected experiences is what they were looking at. And in the previous remake, they introduced the Whispers, or the Feelers as he calls them here, and in this new version, Feeler characters make a return. The same principle applies to characters like Zack, whose appearance in the game sparks curiosity among players, leaving them to wonder about the unfolding of his story. Blah 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 blah. But confirmation there that the Whispers will be making a return. This kind of circulated on Twitter a little bit as well. Some people were dismayed by the fact that, oh my god, the plot ghosts are coming back, no. Whereas a lot of us were like, yeah, we know, obviously they were going to come back. The planet's not going to create a defense mechanism and then go, oh, well, that one's in the bin. It's just not going to do that. So yeah, the Whispers were always going to come back. And even if they weren't under the control of the planet, we saw that Sephiroth absorbed a lot of power from them. Maybe Sephiroth would exert some control over the Whispers going forwards, symbolising that he's got fate and destiny in his hands. Could be either way, but they're definitely going to be back. So yeah, this wasn't too shocking, but again, Twitter had a little bit of a conniption over it. It's calmed down a bit now, everyone's kind of settling back down. It's fine. The next trailer will come along, or the next round of interviews, and kick everybody up again. It'll be fun. It'll be fun. And speaking of fun, one thing that does sound amazingly fun is what they've done with the parade this time. So the interviewer asks, were there any specific aspects of the original FF7 that you were particularly excited to reimagine or bring back? And Hamaguchi immediately goes with Rufus's welcome ceremony. And he says that in the original version it was a very simple minigame, which, I mean, try it. It's not simple, mate. I've got so many grenades off that producer, it's not even funny. He hates me. He absolutely hates me. Hates me, hates me, hates me. But what they've looked to do with it in Rebirth is reimagine it in a way that respects the original, and I'll just read the response, but makes it more interesting. What's unique in Rebirth is Cloud not only has to seamlessly join the parade, as he does in the original version, but we also allow him to form his own party by recruiting soldiers to march with him. This means each player can create their own group of soldiers for the parade upon arriving in Junon, resulting in a different combination of soldiers and a unique performance for each player. It's a feature that adds to what we can achieve today, enhancing the experience beyond what was possible back in the day. And yeah, fair play, that sounds like it's going to be really fun. I'm very into that. So we'll be able to go around Junon recruiting Shinra soldiers to march in the parade with us, and depending on who we recruit, depends on, I'm going to guess, maybe the quality of the performance, but also possibly the style of the performance. Maybe like you can pick a different style to go with. I don't know, but I'm looking forward to check that out. Super looking forward to checking that out. But then the final question is asking about any feedback that they received about Remake that informed things for Rebirth. And one of the things that he talks about that I just had to grab onto was in the Remake, once players progressed past a certain point, they couldn't return to previous locations. In Rebirth, they've made exploration more player-centric, allowing players the freedom to decide when and how they want to revisit earlier locations, even during the main story. So, like previously, when you wouldn't be able to access certain sectors of Midgar because you were locked into a chapter, and because you were locked into that chapter, you were locked into the area. In Rebirth, it's very much going to be more, okay, the players at this point in the story but the player can also access all of these various locations. So you would be able to go about, and it makes sense that it's going to be much more open. It makes sense. We've left Midgar. We're no longer living underneath a big pizza. We're good. So it makes sense that the game would open up a lot more and we'd have a lot more exploration options and a lot more freedom depending on which section of the game that we're on. Obviously, if we're over in Costa del Sol or Gongaga or something like that, it might not be easy to get back to the Chocobo Ranch, but who knows? It might be. In the OG, it's reasonably easy to do. You just go back to Costa del Sol, get on the boat, cross, run round. So maybe that is going to be an option. Maybe that is going to be an option. I'm looking forward to see how much freedom we actually have. You don't really get a scale of it when I played the demo. The world itself, though, like the areas are big and intricate and dense as well. Like they do feel quite dense. There's a lot of things to find, a lot of hunts that you can go and do, the fiends that you can go and fight. And I'll talk about them a bit more in a video in the next few days. But yeah, that's the interviews. That's those 2 interviews. There are a few more. I'm going to have a look around and see if there's anything else that's particularly interesting. But I felt like these 2 were the most interesting of what I found so far. And yeah, I'm very much into it. Like these interviews coupled with playing Rebirth the other day, I am so hyped. Like February 29th cannot come soon enough. We need to get it. We need to get straight into it. I need to control Sephiroth again. You have no idea how good it is. Oh my god, it's so much fun. Let me know in the comments if you've played it, because it's actually been available to the public to play at a couple of events now. So let me know in the comments if you've managed to play FF7 Rebirth so far and what you thought of it. I absolutely loved it. I thought a couple of things might have made combat a little bit more convoluted and a little bit more confusing, but the synergy attacks don't do that. They work just fine. I'm not going to do this now. We'll do this in another video. This video is the interviews video. So yeah, let me know in the comments below. What do you think of the interviews? How bored are you of them saying, oh, it could change, when it already has changed? Let's be honest. Zack. Where do you think Zack is? What do you think's going on? Timelines? What? Anything that's tickled you about this interview? What's kind of interested you about this interview? How do you feel about the Disney thing? How do you feel about the parade changes? I am so into the parade changes. I'm very into it. That's going to be a fun little mini game in itself. Like, it's going to be glorious. But yeah, let me know in the comments below. Like the video, subscribe for future content. Keep an eye out for more stuff coming over the next few days, because we've got a fair few things. We've got the next part of the First Soldier series. We've got Star Ocean videos are going to start coming in the next few days, because the game comes out very soon. We're going to do some guides. We're going to do some review stuff. It's going to be fun. Star Ocean, the second story arc, is glorious. Make sure you play it. And then we're going to have Rebirth. It's all Rebirth pretty much after that. It's just Rebirth, Rebirth, Rebirth. Yeah, it's going to be great. But yeah, enough rambling. More importantly than any of that, have a great day.